How about
I'm starting with the man in the middle. I'm asking him to change the way. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to turn me down, that's okay, as long as you can hear me. Make that change.
Sounds pretty decent, at least in my head. Okay.
Well, as decent as they usually sound, anyway.
Yeah. Why are you freezing? Oh, there we go.
Well, because it snowed this morning.
Uh-huh.
And it was pretty windy also.
In this part of the world, snowing, the thought.
Snow at this time of day, at this time of year,
in
this part of the country, localized entirely within Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
May I see it?
Yes.
It's kind of hard not to. In this part of the world, the snow. Yeah.
Fargo be what Fargo do.
It as it be.
It'd be like it is.
And it do.
We are not that far away from the geographic center of North America.
But it's still quite cold. I think, that's probably
We're
why
also
it's colder.
super duper landlocked.
Yeah. We are not close to the ocean, so we're not in a temperate zone.
Nor are we close to Lake Superior. So
Yeah.
we're not in a temperate zone. But Duluth still manages to hit the top 5 coldest cities in the country with some regularity.
Yeah, I don't think Lake Superior gets nearly warm enough to warm things up around
Well,
there.
it is water. That is all it needs to be.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But
To be a climate moderating body.
although they do get more snow because of it.
Yes. But snow doesn't always equate to cold.
True.
In fact, snow only happens because cold and warm are colliding in the air. That's the way precipitation happens.
and warm
So,
collide.
The driest winters are usually the coldest. It's just
Actually, yeah. It's kind of like in town, cloudy nights are often brighter than clear nights with a full moon because of all the city lights reflecting off the clouds.
I'm not sure how that relates, but okay.
Well, I mean, where it's just like, it's kind of slightly counterintuitive. So it's like,
Sure.
The drier winters are the colder ones, typically.
You
What about the washer winters?
The washer in the water. It's like,
Throw the washer out with the bath water.
yeah. It's like, do not disturb the water. Just a giant washing machine. Just starts throwing old clothes at the fellowship. Get inside the mountain. There's a foul voice in the air. Saruman. There's some things when you're reading Lord of the Rings where it's like, wait, what? Like where Legolas just like, oh, I can walk on top of the snow and just takes off. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go get the sun. Like, huh? What?
And Gandalf's still like, oh yeah, elves can do that. just trust me.
Yes, he just kind of accepts it.
The magic snowshoes.
Snowshoes. Snowshoe hairs. Like hairs. Like
Yes,
rabbits.
We understand.
Uh-huh.
We got it.
Not
I
that
No
didn't think you were.
explanation was required.
I didn't think you were having to trim your snowshoes because they were growing hair.
I mean, hobbits might.
No,
They have quite the hairy feet. Wouldn't put it
and they
past
get
them.
enough stuck in the snowshoes that the snowshoes themselves start to grow it.
They develop a consciousness.
Well, not a consciousness necessarily, but
Yeah, I suppose.
Like the snowshoes come to
organic.
life. Sounds like a terrible B-grade horror film,
Yeah.
set in Fargo.
Yeah. I thought there already was. Or no, that was.
oh wait,
not
that's
horror.
just life.
Yeah. people get thrown into leaf shredders all the time up here. That's just how Fargo is, apparently. Just like Martin Freeman doing his best at a Minnesota accent. Actually, he's not too bad, but I don't know. I feel like a Minnesota.
If you haven't lived here, you don't really know what
You
it's
don't
like.
really,
Oh,
hear
you
it
know.
if you lived here your whole life, you know?
There's the more sort of Norwegian. Oh, gosh, gee, I tell you what, you got to go down to the potluck there.
gonna-
Which is much more the stereotype that people
That's the
are.
stereotype. Around here, it's more like the farmer just kind of. It's probably closer to like maybe sort of a. I mean, the British comparison would be like a like a northern England, just sort of kind of flatter.
What's the planet of the north?
It's like, oh yeah, I got to go down to the. I mean, it's very very similar, but I got to go down to the
Oh,
grocery store, grab some food for the
There's
for
a
the
boat
weekend.
show at the Fargo Dome.
There's a boat show at the Fargo Dome. It's
when you're going out, you're going out.
You're going out.
going out. Sorry,
Oh,
sorry guys. It's a little flattened out. You don't really move your jaw very much in this sort of Minnesota accent.
and you don't pronounce the tertiary letter of the gerund. That is a thing you don't do.
I find I usually talk a little more like this when it's cold out and I don't really feel like moving my mouth very
That's
much.
probably how he developed it,
Yeah.
just because it's so cold up here all the time,
Well, it's so
And,
cold,
yeah.
I feel
I was driving.
oh,
I was
yeah.
not driving. I was
No.
driving.
driving down the road.
driving down the road.
And then Minnesota.
It loosens up a bit down there,
What are you talking about? I hear people say that. I'm like, what are you doing?
A boat.
Yeah.
Are we Canadians?
A boot is a little
A
more
boot is.
a boat.
But people still say a boat.
It's a boat,
Boat.
but down here it's more a boat. So
A boat.
it's a boat. Everything's about the boat in Minnesota. I tell you what. You gotta take out to the lake. This weekend, I gotta take the Kubota out to the lake, and then we gotta put the boat in the water with the Kubota tractor. I tell you what,
I don't even know
For
what
sure.
that is.
Kubota's a brand of tractor.
Oh.
It's the orange ones.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You gotta drive that thing.
Tells you
Oh,
what
you
you know
gotta
when you
have John
don't
Deere.
actually grow up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You're
I mean, I feel like Kubota. You might know what it
a
is.
Colorado City kid.
Yeah. We didn't have a Kubota till I was out of the house.
The host.
I didn't have a Kubota until I was almost a man.
That was rather popular on Facebook. Was it yesterday? I want to put that up.
Mhm.
You think in this time of quarantine for everybody, it's like you think the home education's your. Let me see. You think? Oh, okay.
Go get a cup.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got my whiskey glass here. It's Feast of St. Joseph as we're recording this, and I gave up alcohol for Lent, but in his honor, I'm gonna drink some manly whiskey. You think the home? This isn't working.
Never mind.
You think the home education's your ally? I was born into it, molded by it. I didn't go to a public schooling institution until I was almost a man. People got a kick out of that, mostly homeschoolers.
There we go. That was the joke.
Yep. If you, Pringles can, in my experience, is the best for a Bane impression.
The perfect resonance.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it'd probably work better. It's less muffled if it's a tube instead of like something with a stop at the end of it.
Well, Pringles can still have a stop at the end of it.
Right,
It's
you
just-
could punch a hole in the bottom and probably work a little better.
I've always found that you have to give it like a good half inch of distance from your face.
Because then it can resound
The air
back
can
up
actually
to you.
get out.
Yeah, like a didgeridoo. That sort of thing.
But you hold a didgeridoo half an inch away from your face when you're playing it?
I've never really seen a real didgeridoo. I knew a guy who was able to make a long cardboard tube sound kind of like a didgeridoo,
That's because didgeridoos are just long
but wood.
and wood, which is related to cardboard.
A bit.
A bat.
You never listened to Bob 95 when they were not yet Bob 95?
And
They played Timey
I
Kangaroo
did.
Down Sport
Yeah, they
on loop for several weeks.
Yeah, that was awesome. There was
That's such a fun
our
song.
bishop. It was really funny when that was going on because we were listening to it a lot on the radio because my brother pointed it out to us. And one time, our family was listening to it in the car on our way home from mass, and we see in another car going the other way, the Bishop of Fargo at the time and his assistant. And they were like bobbing their heads. And I'm like, there's only one thing they could be doing that too. It was pretty funny.
Was it in sync to the music in your car?
Pretty much, yeah. It was pretty funny.
Tommy Kangaroo
Down, sport.
Tommy Kangaroo down. Tommy Kangaroo down, sport. Tommy Kangaroo down.
So many youth group bus trips. I initiated that rousing chorus. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a
You know what else is a rousing chorus?
the
The introduction music of the Avengers.
Ba,
Bum,
ba, 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 ba.
Yep.
Ba.
Ba, 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 ba. Speaking of them, we have today we're talking. Oh, we're the Palladium Papists, by the way.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to our podcast that you've been listening to for a bit now because we had an intro part that
Yep.
we just kind of
Wing-
talked about
we always
random
wing it.
stuff.
That is how the
We do.
podcast.
That is how you podcast.
My name is James,
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
and yeah, like today we're talking about the mark correctly. I'm just gonna pull up the list here because
The last.
I had to look this up earlier when we were talking about it. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2
And if-
begins after the first Avengers film. I think chronologically is the first one Iron Man 3 in terms of like the story
guess.
timeline.
So if you're not familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the way it splits its movies up, there are multiple phases, in air quotes, where that are just kind of eras where they had like the whole story planned for a bit and then they started the next phase. The first phase was everything leading up to Avengers.
My mom's
The
like,
first
it's just a
Avengers.
phase, but it lasted another 10 years.
The second phase is everything from what released after the first Avengers film, which is Iron Man 3 was the first one, all the way up to what? The second Avengers film?
Yes.
Age of Ultron?
Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and I think actually it ended with Ant-Man. if I'm not-
Who cares?
I liked Ant-Man.
Ant-Man's fun. It is a fun time, but it
Phase
isn't core
2.
to our discussion that we're having here.
Yeah,
I would
let's see
say.
which graphic do I go with. So yeah, it looks like Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Now I guess retroactively Volume 1. Avengers: Age of Ultron and Ant-Man. So yeah, we're gonna probably be slightly less detailed recap, but I've only seen it once, so I guess Nathan, you want to give like a sort of brief recap of
Iron Man 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who is Iron Man is a little... This takes place directly after the first Avengers film.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, in the first Avengers film, Iron Man physically grabs a nuclear bomb and throws it into a space portal and nearly dies because he almost didn't fall out, but he did because protagonist power.
Plot armor, also
He
known as
builds
the Iron
plot
Man mark,
armor.
whatever that was.
And anyway, because of that, he kind of has PTSD. The whole movie, he's kind of freaking out about that and trying to come to terms with that. In the meantime, there's a terrorist guy called the Mandarin who's blowing people up. And the reason those people are blowing up is because of this serum thing that makes them stronger and gives them powers that they're injected with, but it also makes them unstable and blow up because
Was
bad
it
guy.
Extremis? Was that what it was
It
called?
was called Extremis.
From a flower.
A little
or
bit
something?
different from what it was in the comics, but
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, Iron Man's adventure is all about getting to the bottom of that, finding out who the Mandarin is because it isn't actually
An
the guy on
orange.
TV. Because the guy on TV doing all the monologues is an actor paid by another guy who Iron Man had previously ghosted on some kind of business
Convention thing.
convention thing. Because what happened, so going even further back at the very beginning of the movie where I probably should have started, we have Iron Man pre-Iron Man 1, so it's just
to start.
so it's Tony when he still didn't care about anybody except himself. And because he didn't care about anybody except himself, he made a couple enemies. And that enemy came back to haunt him later because he was a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of the moral of that particular movie. It's the we make our own enemies, or we make our own demons or whatever.
So that's when Incrediboy came after him.
Yes,
Syndrome.
I was
Pretty
just
much.
about to say that.
Pretty much. Anyway, over the course of that film, they find a cure for Extremis. They fight the bad guy who started the anti-Stark corporation that was making Extremis, and
There's like an arc where Tony says 1v1 me, bro, and the guy does and blows up his mansion, so he's just kind of in hiding for a bit, and this little kid helps him out, which is kind of fun. And then at the end of the movie, he gets the shrapnel taken out of his body, and then he doesn't rely on the arc reactor anymore for survival.
And he also promises to Pepper, that his girlfriend, that he'll give up
He
being
promises
Iron
to
Man.
pepper his girlfriend.
I mean,
that would be assault.
no. Did you do that on purpose or?
Yes.
Okay,
With me, it is always on purpose.
this is true. Nice.
Anyway, he promises to stop being Iron Man, which he doesn't, but he still blows up all of the armors that he has habitually created over the past who knows how long. It's kind of one of the movies that if you missed it, it's not a big deal, actually.
Yeah, because honestly, probably the most. Well, I mean, there's some good character moments in there.
There
him,
are,
but-
and Iron Man does do some growth in that movie.
But I think he grows way more in the subsequent Avengers films he's in than he did in either of the sequel Iron Mans, in my opinion.
yeah,
But at any rate, there's also a lot more going on for
there
his
was a lot
character.
more. That was just a basic overview of kind of what happened a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Thor: The Dark World.
Can I talk about that one?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There's not much to
There's
talk
not much
about.
to it.
It was
Not-
kind of bad.
Nathan.
Dark Elves introduction of an Infinity Stone. Loki dies but doesn't die. Lol. And
Take two.
yes,
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed it when it came out.
it's moderately fun, but it's probably one of the most forgettable MCU films. It has only just recently been overtaken in its forgettableness by Captain Marvel.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So, the ether or like the reality stone is introduced in this one.
And Thor's mom dies.
Yeah, Thor's mom dies. Big sad. That will come up later. That's Thor: The Dark World pretty much.
I don't know what he even...
Jane
burns over
Foster,
the
his
course.
girlfriend, Natalie Portwoman, just sort of disappears off the face of the MCU for now.
after that movie.
Although apparently she's coming back for the next Thor movie or whatever.
Well,
but-
because she's got to be Jane Foster Thor, because that's a thing in the comics they need to do in movies, apparently.
and nobody cares anymore. But
I mean, there's lots of other fun Thor things they could have done that are from the comics, like Thor
Frog-
being a frog.
yeah, Frog Thor. They mentioned it.
They made a joke about it, but...
Then the next one, you have Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where basically Cap's been working for S.H.I.E.L.D. for a couple of years, trying to find his place in life. He's like, well, maybe if I just kind of go back to this soldiering thing, it'll kind of settle back in, and it's not quite the same, trying to adjust to modern life. Psych, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra, and they're trying to take over the world.
Infiltrated. It was founded around Hydra.
Sort of, kind of. But at any rate, it's like become overgrown with the weed that is Hydra. And by that I do not mean... Anyway, we... Could you imagine just like Dr. Zola and Red Skull just totally vegging out, wearing like beads and dreadlocks? Rasta Skull.
Green Skull.
That should be the title of the episode: Captain America and Rasta Skull, MCU Phase 2. Anyway, so
I still feel like pouring one out for St. Joseph.
there we go.
But
Well-
we didn't get that one on tape, so we'll leave it out.
Yeah. Or we might if I don't remember. But anyway, so Hydra is trying to take over the world.
Wow.
They quote unquote kill Nick Fury. So Cap has to he teams up with Black Widow and Falcon, who shows up. He's a cool character. He's got the wingsuit thing.
The wingsuit.
And he's a big
thing.
Captain America fan. And they team up, and Nick Fury's not actually dead. They team up, destroy the 3 helicarriers, and over the course of the fighting, they realize Cap comes against this mysterious assassin, rips his mask off, and he's like, "What? Dat be Bucky?" my boy Bucky not be dead, but he don't remember me because Hydra took him, gave him metal arm, wiped his brain, made him into a super soldier. Now he's evil, but he hit him on the head a few times, and apparently he remembers things because that's how memory works. You smack somebody in the head enough.
That's how movie memory works.
Yeah. But yeah, Bucky doesn't remember, is the Winter Soldier. He doesn't remember Steve. And so they fight, and then sort of at the end, Cap and Bucky have this big showdown. He's like, I can't fight you because you're my best friend. And he tries to get Bucky to remember, and he sort of does. So he saves Cap's life as they're falling in this burning wreckage of a ship. But yeah, they destroy S.H.I.E.L.D., and so the whole MCU world order is sort of shaken up in this movie because like the big government agency thing that brought them together was actually sort of a corrupt Nazi organization under the surface. And then taking a break from things going on Earth, if you rewind a little bit to the 80s, you have little boy Peter Quill, mom die cancer.
And then aliens abducted him.
Yep.
Tried to eat him, but then some blue guy said, no, don't eat him. Let's keep him around. He's skinny.
He's
good for
not
thieving.
for eating. Let's see. He's good for thieving, yeah. So fast forward a number of years. It's modern day 2014 in space. And Peter Quill is a Chris Pratt ripped boy. He's a
daring gentleman, roguish thief sort of thing, wannabe.
Bounty hunter type. He goes and steals this orb. He's like, oh, I can get some money for this thing. Fights some bad guys. Steals it and takes it to, I think it's the Nova Corps or whatever, because he wants to like get money for it. And he's hunted down. There's what was the name of the villain in that movie?
Ronan the Accuser.
Yes.
He is an alien of the race called the Kree, that are a imperial force that wants to conquer a lot of the universe and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
who will also come up later. But.
Yeah,
they
more than was evident at the time. But basically, find out that Chairman, Big Purple Chin Chairman Thanos, has him as one of his underlings, and then Gamora, who's Green Lady Assassin, and Nebula, who's Blue Lady Assassin robot,
who are both adopted children of Thanos.
Mm-hmm. And
Thanos. Thanos.
They
must say
they get sent to chase after Quill because the orb he has isn't a purple Infinity Stone, the Power Stone, but he doesn't know that. So they send these people after him to get it. And
at the same time, in the Nova Corps capital, you have
a talking
raccoon and his tree best friend
Groot.
hanging around, and they see that
this guy's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, Chris Pratt, Peter Quill has a bounty on his head, so they go to collect it, and then Gamora jumps in and fights, and there was a 4-way brawl, and then everyone gets arrested.
Yeah, and sent to prison. And in prison, they have to work together to escape, and then they escape. They're like, all right, guys, we can get a lot of money for this orb thing. And then they take it to a collector, who's this interesting dude. Like, hey, can you give us money for this? He's like, oh, by the way, this is a super powerful thing that can kill millions of people. And they're like, oh, we can't.
You forgot the part in prison where they meet the last team member.
Oh, Drax. Yeah. Big
Tattoo McKnife Man.
Yep.
Tattoo McInvisible Knife Man.
Yep.
Except he's not actually invisible.
Yeah. He, and his whole thing is that, Ronan killed his family and he wants revenge. So they all kind of band together as unlikely ragtag group. Ronan kind of goes rogue from Thanos because he wants the orb for himself. And so
because unlimited power.
Yes. Unlimited power. So yeah, it ends up they're back on the Nova Corps planet, and they meet up with Yondu and his band of Ravagers, who are the people who abducted Peter Quill when he was a kid. Star-Lord is what he'd like to be called.
But nobody does.
Nobody does. And they sort of all band together to protect the planet from Ronan's massive army of spaceships. There's this big fight. They have a dance off with Ronan on the ground. Groot sacrifices himself to save the group. They have a dance off, hold hands with the Power Stone and steal it from Ronan. And because he got
power
it
of
at some point,
friendship,
I forgot.
they control the stone and use it to blow him up, and they win.
And it's like, oh, you should have died because so you might not. You're only half human, by the way. And it's like, what?
Bum bum bum.
Plus, everyone's like, who's Peter Quill's father?
And everyone who read the comics was like, well, we know, but that's not who it was in the comics and the second movie. So it's like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. And then from there, we got Avengers Age of Ultron, where they're taking down...
The Avengers are just out there doing their thing.
Doing their thing. They've all banded together again. They're taking out Hydra and finding Loki's scepter, which was taken by Hydra, and taking down Baron von Strucker and his goons in
Captain
Sokovia.
Nemo. I mean Zemo.
Yeah. Well,
Zemo
Zemo's...
doesn't show up
Well,
till...
oh, yeah, that's
He's
right. That's
technically
Civil War. That's
present,
Civil War,
but we don't see him in this movie.
But what Strucker does have is he has Wanda and Pietro Maximoff, who are
Sokovians.
they're also
the
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who are X-Men characters that somehow Disney managed to use before they bought 20th Century Fox, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also appear a lot in the Avengers comics, so they're kind of both and. Anyway, one's super fast and the other has vaguely red magical power things.
Mm-hmm. They got their powers from the Mind Stone, I think, is what's
I believe
implied.
that's what's implied, yes.
They were experimented
the Mind
on.
Stone being the Infinity Stone inside Loki's scepter.
Yep. And so yeah, there's this big battle. They take down this Hydra base, and it's kind of cool action sequence. And then they take the scepter back to the Avengers Tower and just keep doing their cool things. Have a big party to celebrate.
And Iron Man and Bruce Banner were like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we used the Mind Stone to make an AI that could help us protect the Earth?"
Because Iron Man's like, my solution to every problem is build a suit of armor. So what if we could put a suit of armor around the world and give it a brain that can control it for us so we can be sipping margaritas on the beach or something? And Bruce Banner's like, okay. So they do it. They don't think it works, and they leave the room for a bit. And then Ultron, the program, wakes up. And he's like, oh, humanity's terrible. Fights Jarvis, beats up Jarvis digitally somehow.
Jarvis being Iron Man's AI butler.
Yep. Super advanced AI butler buddy. And then takes over this suit of robot armor that Tony has lying around.
Because he has armor lying around.
Yeah, and he's like, Avengers, you guys suck. And attacks them all while they're trying to see who can lift Thor's hammer. And notably, Cap, on his go, makes it squeak a little bit. And Thor's like, what? But he's like, oh, yep, nope, I can't lift it. And everyone's like, At any rate, they have a fight with these Ultron robots, and Ultron, since he's a computer program, escapes through the internet and is up to no good. So they kind of track him down to this place in Africa. I'm disappointed they didn't do that.
It wasn't a meme yet.
True. But at any rate, so they track him down to this ship boneyard or whatever. We have the smuggler guy named Ulysses Claw. His whole deal is he steals this crazy metal that is Cap's shield is made out of vibranium. And Ultron comes to him. He has a big suit of armor now. He's recruited the Maximoff twins. He's like, we're gonna screw over Tony Stark because he's the worst. And they're like, yeah, we don't like Tony Stark because one of his weapons blew up our house and killed our parents when we were little. At any rate, so they team up. They fight each other. Scarlet Witch messes up all the Avengers' minds and make Hulk go all ape crazy on a town nearby.
So Iron Man pulls out his armor made specifically to fight the Hulk because, of course, he has that. And they smash some buildings and stuff.
Yep. And then they all just kind of regroup. They're like, well, that didn't go well. And then Ultron, his big plan is to use the vibranium that he stole from the Claw guy along with his arm. He wants to wipe out humanity with a giant meteor and make a new version of humanity after his own image. So he starts building this new body for himself out of the vibranium. This android. So the Avengers are like, okay, we can't let him do that. They track him down, fight him a bit, and steal the android from him. And then Tony's like, hey, you know that bad idea we tried at the beginning of the movie? Let's do it again, but we can put Jarvis, because Jarvis isn't dead. We can put him in the guy, because Jarvis is good, right? So let's take the Mind Stone, stick it in this guy, in this android thing, and Jarvis, and make a new person. And they fight for a little bit, like, no, you shouldn't do it. And then Thor's like, yes, we should. Thor does this weird side quest thing that doesn't really matter.
It's more setting up Thor Ragnarok than
which
anything.
didn't really need anyway. At some point they go into hiding and find out Hawkeye is a family. That's just kind of a side thing.
Hawkeye's kind of a side thing.
Yeah, I like Hawkeye though.
He's cool. It's crazy.
anyway,
There's
the Hawk
robots and
Locker.
Staying on topic.
Yep, stay on topic. Get on with it. And so they this new AI android dude, super powerful, is Vision, and it turns out he's good because he can lift the hammer. And he's really powerful because he's powered by the Mind Stone now, and he's got the voice of Jarvis and all that fun stuff. Anyway, so they all team up, and they're like, okay, we gotta have this big showdown. Turns out that town in Sokovia that they were fighting at the beginning of the movie, that's what Ultron wants to turn into a big meteor and destroy the Earth with.
Sokovia being a fictitious European
Eastern
country.
European country, yeah. So there's a big showdown in the city against his army of robots. Cool, flashy stuff. And then they ultimately beat him and blow up the meteor before it can do damage.
Oh, Quicksilver
Earth.
heckin' dies.
Yeah, Quicksilver sacrifices himself to save Hawkeye and a kid that Hawkeye is trying to save. So, yeah. That's and then Scarlet Witch is a sort of Avenger because they have a change of heart when they see what Ultron's plan is, sort of. So they want to save lives and such. But yeah, that's Ultron, and they're like, all right, let's train up these new B-tier Avengers people.
Until they're A-tier Avengers.
Yeah.
Because
you get War Machine, Falcon, and Wanda. They're all like, all right, we're going to recruit them. Avengers, and yeah.
the film.
That's Age of Ultron. And then you have Ant-Man. Scott Lang, he's like a really smart, Masters in Computer Engineering or whatever dude who finds the company. He went to prison because his company was doing unethical things to its customers. So he's actually a good guy. But he gets released from prison. He's like, okay, I got to go straight because I want to be able to see my daughter, all that fun stuff. But his buddies convince him to do one last job on the sly.
Well,
if you listen to episode, I think it's 4, one of those.
Nobody did. Like, literally nobody.
I think a few people did.
we
I remember
did.
the
One
analytics.
person on SoundCloud and 0 so far on Spotify.
Well, your loss.
That guy on SoundCloud. Shout out to you, man.
Probably
John.
So yeah, and Hank Pym is this another smart scientist dude. He has was it Cross or whatever, his protege who's not quite right in the head. He's trying to replicate his Pym particle.
I don't know.
Cross.
Evil businessman.
Yeah, evil businessman.
Like the fourth one in the MCU or something.
Yeah, he wants to replicate Pym's secret formula for shrinking things.
Shrinky formula.
Because it makes you really powerful for some reason. Yeah, Dr. Pym invented this particle that shrinks things and increases your strength or whatever. So, and had the original Ant-Man. So this evil guy wants to replicate it. So Hank and his daughter Hope are like, all right, the Scott Lang guy is interesting. Let's make him the new Ant-Man to steal this new miniature dude suit from the bad guy. And so they recruit him for this big heist, and they steal it, and save the day, and destroy the what is his character? He's
the
Hornet?
Yellow Jacket.
Yellow Jacket, yeah, is the villain. They have this big epic showdown as miniature people in Scott's daughter's bedroom amongst like her train set and stuff, and it's kind of a fun little set piece. And
Throughout the movie, Hope's like, "But I could do it. Why can't I do it?" And Hank's like,
No.
because back in the day when I was Ant-Man and your mom was the Wasp, your mom shrank to subatomic levels, and I assume that she's dead because I can't find her because she's in the
I don't
quantum
want to
realm or something."
lose you, Hope.
So he wants to hold on to Hope
Yep.
in more ways than one, actually.
Yep. Don't leave me, daughter. So he's like,
You're
yeah,
my only hope.
this, yeah. The Scott guy is expendable. He's like, thanks.
Anyway.
Oh, he can control ants with a little thing on his ear too. So he's got kind
There's
of,
that too. That's part of his power.
he rides on like a little Antony,
Mm-hmm.
his flying ant steed. But yeah. So yeah, that's phase two.
That were those movies.
So phase two, I guess overall sort of shakes up. I mean, yeah, it really shakes up the world that was initially built in phase one, where you have the superheroes are all working together now on the Avengers team, but then some stuff hits the fan.
Yeah,
And,
there's like a clear delineation of what's good and what's bad. Like the Avengers are all good and they don't do anything bad. Like they're personally they have their flaws.
Very
but
flawed.
They as a group are good and only do good.
This is where things start to fall apart like that.
Yes.
Because even Guardians and Ant-Man, the two new movies, are both characters with kind of a moral gray center. Because Ant-Man's like doing a heist, and Guardians are like a bunch of criminals that break out of jail. That's another thing this phase does, right? Because after in phase one, you had kind of everything was very centered on Earth except maybe Thor.
yeah,
But now we have more growth in all directions with Guardians of the Galaxy.
universe is a lot bigger than you think.
bigger universe, right?
mm-hmm.
Where we had gotten a taste of that in Thor. Now Thor: The Dark World and Guardians are continuing to grow that, and we even see there's more stuff on Earth we didn't know about, like Ant-Man.
Yeah. And then this is where a lot of the sort of like the ideological conflicts between Iron Man and Captain America start kind of becoming more defined, because especially in Ultron.
Yes. Particularly because Iron Man goes behind everyone's back to do what he thinks is best.
Yeah.
Well, clearly what he thinks is best isn't always best.
Yeah, because in the Winter Soldier, in like the opening acts of Phase 2, you have the Winter Soldier where Cap, he's like thinks he can just go back to being a good soldier, but turns out the government organization SHIELD isn't really to be trusted. So he's kind of had his trust broken, and he's a lot more wary of people nowadays. But he still learns to maintain his, steadfast principles and all that in spite of all that.
But despite the fact that Hydra is infiltrated SHIELD and stuff and corrupted even his best friend, right? He is steadfast in his belief that he can save his friend from the Hydra brainwashing, and it's more
because Bucky's really all he has left of his old life,
right? And that's he's kind of holding on to that, right? He's very, I don't know. He puts a lot of faith in his friends and in himself and his mission.
Yep. And then on Iron Man's case, he sort of learns to let go of his fears, I guess, in Iron Man 3, because they're really holding him back.
In Age of Ultron, he becomes a little bit paranoid again with the build a suit of armor around the world in case of another invasion, right?
Horrifically backfires.
Yes, horrifically. So there's this kind of Iron Man is willing to prioritizes the, security, whereas Captain America prioritizes freedom.
Yep.
Which this dynamic is brought to a head in Captain America Civil War, which is later. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
But this is boiling up to that point.
Yeah. For the most part, in Age of Ultron, they work pretty well together, and the whole team does. But then there's like a little spats here and there.
Language.
Yeah. There was especially that scene where they're splitting firewood and they're just like, if you try to end a fight before it starts, good people die, that sort of thing. Which was sort of left over from his experience in Civil War. Thor is still doing Thor things, learning how to be a good guy sort of thing. I guess one thing we neglected to, or did we talk about how Loki somehow whisks Odin away at the end of Ragnarok and takes over Isengard?
I guess that's
No.
Isengard.
Asgard. There we go. Not Isengard.
They're taking the Infinity Stones to Isengard.
That's really what the Palantir is.
And they get there, and it's Magneto.
But yeah, no. So, yeah. Where was I going? Yeah, Thor doesn't really change a whole lot in Phase 2. We talked about there's like the sort of side quest thing where he has a vision of like, oh no, something is very bad going to happen to Asgard, and that's really all that happens with this character.
And not a lot happens to him and with him in the Dark World. He just kind of feels very static throughout that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So what are some other, I guess, overarching themes from Phase 2? We kind of covered the main ones with the Avengers.
If you look at Hulk, had a bit of a turning point in Age of Ultron.
Turns out him and Natalie have this sort of chemistry. Natalie being
not Natalie Portman.
Natasha and Bruce Banner have sort of a chemistry, and she's found ways to sort of calm the Hulk down. So they kind of have a relationship with each other. But
at the end of Age of Ultron, because of the way he'd been manipulated and stuff like that, Bruce Banner feels like the Hulk is too dangerous, right?
Yeah, and since he smashed a bunch of buildings in his city in his blind rage caused by Scarlet Witch, he's this whole time he's been wrestling with, the Hulk, and like the fact he can hurt people really kind of outside of his control almost. So he like loses control. And so he sort of exiles himself at the end of Age of Ultron.
At the age of the age of the end of the end of the age.
At the end of Age of Ultron, he sort of exiles himself because he's like, well, you got to protect people from me, basically.
Mm-hmm.
As the Hulk, he leaves, not as Bruce Banner.
Yeah,
which is an interesting development. Ant-Man is another sort of it's kind of another redemption origin story.
It's kind of like Iron Man on a tiny scale.
Mm-hmm. He's like, his main motivation is wanting to be a good dad for his daughter because he's kind of let her down by being irresponsible, going to prison and things like that. And that's one of his main motivations, is like, I just want to be able to have a relationship with her and that sort of thing, and kind of make up with his criminal past. And yet it's a sort of melding of his criminal past with his family protecting nature that enables him to sort of synthesize and become a new man, like a certain other film we've discussed. Except for this one, they're not stealing birds, but highly scientific. Some of the side characters in Edgar Wright, one of our favorite directors, was involved with at least part of the development. I don't know how much, but like his editing style kind of bleeds through a little bit in the movie, and there's some fun sequences where you have Louise telling stories. Michael Pena's character, he's a lot of fun. Telling stories about, like, I know a guy who told another guy who told this gal, sort of thing. It's kind of fun. And then the Avengers find out Ant-Man exists because he tries to steal this thing from an old Stark facility. Oh crap. Yeah. It's actually the new Avengers facility.
So him and Falcon have a fight.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun. Anyway.
Yep. So that's Phase 2.
I mean, I think kind of the key thing about the development of Phase 2 as a whole is, like I mentioned earlier, like, this is their first experience of questioning their mission to an extent. Like, they see what happens when stuff hits the fan, and they see their potential for danger as these extremely powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to consider that. It gives them pause as they are going about their superheroing.
Yeah.
They have to think about, okay,
there's externalities.
Yes, there's
consequences. There's fallout.
When will you learn?
Oh gosh.
Your actions have consequences.
Yep. Which is another thing that comes up in Phase 3. But yeah, it's sort of their first test of like their resolve in Phase 2.
Yeah. Phase 1 is them coming together. Phase 2 is
they're not out of the woods
they've
yet.
learned that there are consequences.
Mhm.
Phase 3 is about how do we deal with the consequences. We
Yeah.
get that when we get there.
which in and of itself causes consequences.
Right. But this one is like the realization that they don't exist in a vacuum, right?
Yep.
Iron Man 3, Iron Man challenges this terrorist to
1v1 me,
to
bro.
1v1 me, bro, right? And that causes
He's like-
people around him to get hurt. That
Yeah.
causes his life to be turned upside down, right? Captain America, in fighting the evil of Hydra, he disrupts this force that was previously thought to be for world peace, and so now that's all in shambles, and things are all different now.
Mm-hmm.
Age of Ultron, they like have to save a city falling out of the sky, but it blows up people's homes and people get hurt, and it's,
People who aren't really too friendly to them either.
yeah. So it's this realization that there are consequences, and they might have a responsibility for those consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to question, how do we deal with that?
Yep. So I guess in keeping with our sort of motto here, I guess personal responsibility, like truth, goodness, and beauty and unity we can find in these films. Certainly, I mean, in Cap's character, you have like, maintaining steadfast in one's morals and standing up for what's right. And that obviously in most of the superhero movies, and that kind of holds true to some degree or another.
But
Yeah.
in particular, Captain America is
Yeah.
very stalwart.
Yep.
He's not willing to compromise. Like he says in Infinity War, we don't trade lives.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but that kind of sums up his attitude to things. Like,
Yeah.
even if the outcome of doing something, he's not a consequentialist.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't
Deals with the consequences when they happen.
he does the right thing and shoots first and asks questions later.
Yeah. Would you say Tony Stark is more of a consequentialist?
I would say so.
Yeah.
He's kind of a Machiavellian, the ends justify the means sort of thing.
If
Yeah.
you look at Age of Ultron,
That is kind of the whole thing about Age of Ultron, exactly.
Yeah.
He's
right.
like,
He's so consequentialist. He's planning for some day that may never come.
Yeah.
Right. He's to the point of almost being paranoid. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So because that was what he learned in the first Iron Man movie, is that his actions have consequences. His weapons blow people up.
Yeah.
Right. His whole arc is learning how to make amends. Right.
Yeah. And the villain of Ultron is sort of an intellectual creation of Tony's as much as like a technological one.
And so
That's very extreme and warped, where he's like, okay, well, in order to prevent humanity from committing evil and evils befalling Earth, I'm just going to wipe out humanity and start over. So another ends justify the means sort of thing.
but like the polar opposite of the way Tony approaches it,
Right.
which is interesting.
Yep. Shoe on the other foot, as it were. Yep. Huh.
goodness.
Huh. So,
What
yeah.
sort of goodness can we find? We've talked about truth
Yeah.
somewhat for that.
Hawkeye.
There's a bit of family in Phase
Yeah.
2. There's kind of...
The Avengers are sort of developing into a family. There's sort of a family formation going on with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of the takeaway of Guardians of the Galaxy in a way.
It's a bit dysfunctional, but
Well, it's a bit dysfunctional, but it's like the Guardians are like the family that chooses by choice, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the film,
they're all broken in some way or another, and they
Right.
find out they can, share in each other's joys and sorrows, I guess, as a sort of a family unit.
you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. I
Mhm.
guess is kind of how Guardians do. It talks more about that in Volume 2.
It's got Vin Diesel in it, so it's got to talk about family in copious amounts, right?
Even though Vin Diesel himself only says 4 words in the entire film.
Yep. Yeah, so there's the there's some of the goodness. And obviously, self-sacrifice and saving human life
Mm-hmm.
at all costs.
But that's kind of understated. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
that's-
understood to
that's
be
the thing
the
about-
component of superhero movies.
Yes.
What about
Beauty. They're very well
yeah,
shot.
They're visually appealing.
There's sort of a leap forward technologically with Phase 2, I noticed. Like, you can really see the difference. I mean, part of that is that Paramount no longer was running the show. They had, like, Disney had bought the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. The Russos, who are really talented directors, the Russo brothers, they started their Marvel career with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So yeah, there's a lot of advance, like the visually speaking, technologically speaking, like they're very well shot films altogether. Very, visual effects and all those things were pretty cool stuff. Aesthetically, yeah, there's a lot to like about those movies, in my opinion.
And Guardians of the Galaxy had some fun music in the
Oh, yeah.
soundtrack.
Yeah,
Mhm.
lots of 70s.
I always like those sort of aesthetic blending sort of things.
yeah,
With the 80s music being juxtaposed with the
like space.
tech
Yeah,
stuff.
he's
Yeah.
like got a tape deck in his giant spaceship.
Yeah,
Right? Just that he plays his music mix on. In this
which
little-
were given to him by his mom before
his,
she
his
died.
mom's mixtape.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of fun. So there's very artistic movies overall, I'd say.
Lot of fun artistic choices.
Unity. It's. I guess that's the main thing about the universe. Is
It's all sort of, it's working towards unity. It's not there yet.
yeah,
Right.
The Avengers, I mean, Age of Ultron and the main series Avengers films are all kind of.
it's kind of where you
A
see
feature of
things
that.
beginning to sort of come together, like at the very early stages of where they're going to be eventually headed.
But it is
It's-
also
it-
very human and dysfunctional in their
Yeah.
unity, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of inside bickering and such. Guardians of the Galaxy, too. They come together and unify against a common evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this...
From my point of view, the Avengers are evil.
Then you are lost! It's over, Thanos! I have the high ground!
We're all really waiting to see that battle.
It's kind of hard to achieve unity when you're doing something like this because everything is by its construction different. You're
Yeah.
bringing together distinct elements, and it's hard to fuse them all into something. that
Although
is
all the events of
aesthetically
every
unified.
movie have an effect on the rest.
right? So in
Particularly
that way,
in this phase.
Yeah. So I guess that's the stage of the evolution of the unity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I guess I'd say. But yeah, that's I think that pretty well covers Phase 1. I mean, there's a lot
Phase
more.
2?
Phase 2.
Phase 2, yeah. Phase 1 and 2, I guess we've pretty well covered those.
Phase 3 has a lot of movies. I think we shouldn't do the film-by-film synopsis, or at least
Yeah,
only
maybe not
cover
so
the
much.
really important ones.
The main ones would probably be Civil War and
Infinity War and Endgame
yeah,
have more than enough. Maybe a little Ragnarok here and there, but
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat stuff. So,
Yeah.
I guess have fun.
have a happy first Sunday of Coronatide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bet you didn't know you're going to be giving up Mass for Lent this year. But yeah, stay healthy. If you're not healthy, get better. Walk it off, as Cap would say.
Lil.
Lil. Since we know you don't really have a whole lot else to do unless you're working from home like me. Subscribe. We have our brand new website, which is not a WordPress. We changed our minds on that. It's on Wix. I'm going to pull up the address because I don't have this memorized yet.
It is the Palladian Papist, just one, not
Well,
plural.
by
It
the-
will be changed probably by the time this
By
comes
the time
out.
this goes live, it's the Palladian Papists.
.wixsite.com
Yeah.
/ website as it currently stands.
Yeah.
We might change that too.
If
but
you follow us at Paula Papists on Facebook and Twitter, we'll have links to our website and stuff on there, so it'll be a little easier for you to find.
we're live on Spotify now and
Stitcher
Stitcher and Google Play. We are
Working
submitted
on
for review on iTunes.
as of the recording of this
As of
episode.
recording this, we are not yet on iTunes.
But yeah, that's where you can find us. So
if
yeah,
you go to our Facebook page or Twitter page or
give us a
website,
like.
you'll see where we're available.
Share if you know other people who are also bored and need something to listen to. Our podcast is, I don't know, on the list of things they could listen to if they want to inflict us on themselves. It's a penitential season after all. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment on Facebook if you feel so inclined,
I guess.
Yeah,
or Twitter.
Please do
We've
so.
shout out to Brother Teresa on Twitter.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, brother.
You're the only person who isn't a host of the podcast that's following our account, brother.
Yeah, we're Gorons now. But yeah. Anyway, so I guess take care, stay healthy until the next time.
I mean, Gorons are Hulk Hogan anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
Hulk Hogan might even be a Goron.
You don't know.
He's orange looking enough. All right. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.